You're about to witness a seismic event.
Daddy, can you put on Skitbags radio?
No, go to bed.
Okay, yeah, that's the promo.
Yeah. Yo, what up out there in the universe? This is Sailor Dev with Skitbags Radio! We are broadcasting live from Dash Radio in Hollywood, California. Coming at you from Dash Talk X. What is up, fam? We are gonna go around the table here and introduce our illustrious guests. What up? Yo, K-Money, I don't even know how to address you at this point, truthfully.
T-Mac.
T-Mac?
Not K-Money.
K-Money, T-Mac, T-Bag.
T-Mac, T-Bag, sure.
You change your Instagram every single fucking week, so I don't know what it is.
Just call me Maura Lurphy. No, T McD.
T McD in the studio, T McD in the house. What up? Let's go around the corner. What up, Gab?
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Gabba Shake over here in the corner.
Shaking.
And over here to my left, we have...
Nick Arciero.
Nick the Great
in the house.
Let's give a round of applause to our illustrious guests.
No, Nick.
And today, we are on the show. We're going to break it down. We're going to keep it casual, but usually we start with every episode with a breakdown of a movie or TV show in particular. But in light of Halloween, we're going to be talking about all things great and scary Halloween effects. We got the new Halloween movie coming up. We got no remakes. We got all these bullshit things we could talk about. But let's go back to the source material, y'all. Like Hitchcock, bro. I only like to say that name because of the cock.
Say Hitchcock again.
Speaking of cock, I'm still waiting on that Birds remake, too. That's
round
gonna
of
be a good one.
applause for T-Mac's pun. No, but yeah, what do you guys think? I mean, you gotta admit, Vertigo, fucking Psycho, like, they're...
I mean, iconic. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you know the Vertigo shot, you know the Psycho shot, the shower scene.
Dude, my favorite scene out of almost any Hitchcock movie is in a movie I just watched recently, Frenzy.
Yeah.
Which is not one of his more famous. I mean, they're all famous, but in context to other movies, it's not his most famous one. He didn't use any famous actors. He used the London Play Group as his actors. But it's about the necktie murderer. And there's a whole scene, and I think it's one of the most masterful suspense scenes. And as someone who's a visual artist, does photography and some film, you know, where do those cues come from? And that whole silent walk down the staircase. I remember watching that when I was maybe like 15. This is brilliant. Just a dead silence for 30 seconds as he pans down an entire staircase. It's incredible after someone just got murdered.
Right.
I mean, he was a master with the camera.
Yeah.
He did things that nobody had ever done before.
What do you guys say? Sorry.
Well, I mean, just going back to his, his movies can be identified oftentimes by one shot. Like if you show a picture of the drain from Psycho, that's Psycho. If you see the shot in the bell tower from Vertigo,
Yep.
where he zooms in and zooms out at the same time, what exactly do you call that though? It's just the Vertigo shot.
You think that's the Vertigo? I think the eye close-up is a Vertigo shot for me.
Well, no, because nobody had ever done that technique in Vertigo where he zooms in with a long lens and then he tracks the camera back at the same time. So he's pulling the camera's physically moving backwards and he's zooming in at the same time. So you get this like warp sense, and that's creating the lead character's Vertigo, like how he's seen like his fear of heights.
So it's not necessarily the shot that's projected on screen that is so unique, which it is, but it's more uniquely that the way he executed that shot was revolutionary.
It's the thought process behind how do I convey a feeling.
Right.
And Martin Scorsese used that same technique in, was it Goodfellas?
He did in Goodfellas. He also did it in fucking his, the Rat one, the Boston, God damn it, what was it?
Oh, with Matt Damon.
Yes, whatever that fucking one. At the end with the rat where he was zooming in but pulling out with the rat walking across the banister.
Yep.
Right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
So you're creating a very awkward illusion that is represented as the human eye. And Hitchcock, if he did anything better than anyone, even though he didn't get any Academy Awards, but he invented ways to see differently. And to me, if you can invent a new way to see or understand somebody, I mean, I think that's why a lot of directors will rate him as the greatest director of all
Yeah,
time.
he was innovative.
Not because he made the best storylines or the best movies, but because he thought differently and made perception on an audience completely different than what anybody else was doing.
And it's interesting that you note that he never did get an Academy Award, because the Academies, most oftentimes, they reward for innovation.
Yeah.
And he was very innovative, but he never got one.
Was he nominated?
He was nominated.
He was nominated a bunch, but he never,
but never won. And
story of Leo, he fucked the wrong producer, bro.
Yeah, I guess.
Love you, Leo. I'm sorry, man.
Was
Pay for a mistake, man, when you're like 25. I'm sorry.
Was Hitchcock Rear Window also?
yeah, Hitchcock did Rear Window.
That's a great one.
What
Very simple
Another
story.
amazing one.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about Hitchcock's use of tones and sound effects? Like, particularly sound effects that are Foley, and then sound effects that are soundtrack and musically orchestrated.
Well, I think it's interesting in the aspect that watching him in today's context, it's almost hokey. But when you put yourself into trying to be in that mindset of this is brand new,
Yeah.
and
like-
nobody's really doing it to this extent.
Yeah. You can't-
I think it probably immersed people into the scene, just like what horror movies do now, or suspense movies do now, where they really, like the Saw movies. And the first Saw movie came out, that whole perception was kind of a different way of doing shock horror. And I think Hitchcock was utilizing sound and audio in that same way.
Well, the birds. Well, the bird's interesting because you cannot go back and watch that now. You have to. Like you just said, you have to put yourself in the 1950s mindset. Like, this is a brand new film. Like, nobody's ever seen this before in your entire life. But you watch it now and you're like, that bird's on a string and he's just throwing it, and it's just like bumping into Tippi Hedren.
Clearly. But so this is a creepy real life experience that I had. So a previous girlfriend of mine was from Sebastopol, which is right by Bodega Bay. So we went up to visit her family, and being Hitchcock obsessed, I wanted to go see the church.
Oh yeah.
And so with my camera, went and photographed the church. It was it was really creepy. And when I was done photographing, I turned around and there's all these power lines. And on the power lines were just hundreds of birds staring at me. So I photographed them as well. But there I am in one of my favorite movies scenes, standing there, and then all the birds being there, right there.
It makes you wonder, like, while they were
staring
shooting
at
the
me.
movie, if some of those birds just happened to be there.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's just a bird spot.
It's right off the ocean, so there's a lot of seagulls up there. But it was really creepy and really eerie and it's a very quiet, sleepy little town on top of it.
Yeah.
They have great saltwater taffy, though.
It's like a seaside community.
Yeah. But that was, when I was there, that was a real kind of transformative
Is
moment
that
for me.
where the playground is also? Like, did the
not
church double for the playgrounds?
No, but it's not too far from what I understand. I didn't go to the playground, but it's...
Yeah, I imagine.
It's a real tiny little town that when you see it all in real life, you're like, yeah, this is
Truly terrifying when it came out.
kind of creepy up here.
I do believe that they're doing a remake, though.
Are they?
I think so.
That's awful.
Really?
I don't think that's stuff you should mess
I mean, you cannot... I just watched The Birds a little while ago. And by a little while ago, I mean like a year. And, I mean, obviously it doesn't hold up, but... I mean, it could do with a little update.
I don't know. I just think there are certain things you don't mess with, and Alfred Hitchcock movies are
Well, yeah, you can't remake Vertigo.
yeah.
It won't play.
You can't remake.
None of those, right?
You can't remake.
Can't remake Psycho. Like, you can try.
They did
but
try to remake it.
They
I
remade
know,
Rear
but
Window, didn't they?
Did it work? I mean, did it work?
I don't know.
Because Halloween is coming out this year. The remake of Halloween, which is the legacy of Michael Myers and the continuation story. So it's not like a remake, it's more of a sequel, but it's Danny McBride.
I don't know about the movie, but the haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights at Universal really fucking made me shit my pants.
Gross.
I'm gonna move over to the left.
Gross.
So scary.
Girls
Well-
are gross.
What Have you ever seen the movie, Gabby? The originals or
Yeah, with
any
Jamie
of
Lee?
those? Yeah. Well,
I've only seen the first one. I know that there are a few remakes.
Oh, well, that's
or
really all you need to see.
storylines, but
so did like the theme park stick to the storyline and to the canon, or was it just kind of like a
they
jump
stick
scare
to it.
thing?
It was pretty much a jump scare, but that was also the one that Julian was working that night. So I was constantly like, "Hello, are you Julian?" Like someone would jump out of me and be like, "Ah, Julian." No, okay, I'll keep moving.
Shout out to our boy Julian Kazanzas. I love him. What was he playing?
He was playing one of the mics.
One of the mics.
Multiple
Well, there
Michael
have to be a
Myers.
bunch. You keep walking through and they keep jumping
You don't
out
think
at
the
you.
same Michael Myers just runs to
There's only one mic.
Julian, it's your Julian in here.
Julian. I think I heard
That
a
was
Julian.
me.
Next time
That's
you
me
go to
all
the
night.
haunted house, you should just call him while you're in there.
Just
So you know-
completely ruin it for everybody.
He'll be like, "Bah!" Hold on, I gotta take this call.
So with this new Halloween movie, isn't Jamie Lee Curtis's character fighting back?
I think she's in it.
Like she's trying to kill him?
She's the main protagonist.
Well, yeah, she's the main character, I believe.
Yeah.
Still. As it should be.
The tables have turned. Apparently,
Yeah,
I think it's like
She's hunting him.
Yeah, because now she's like spent her whole life studying and like figuring out Michael Myers' secret and like how he lives and all the canon details. This is why I asked about the canon, because like there's so much canon amongst this series that now has been embedded that if this movie would just stand alone, it would never work. It would never even the slightest remake of an inclination of working. Even if like they ended it in the 80s and we didn't have any movies between the 80s and now, and you did this movie wouldn't work. Plot lines, because you have to have all this expository explanation of who is Michael Myers, why is he not dead, what's the theory behind this, why is he attacking this one girl, why is she fighting back, you know,
I mean, yeah.
all these whys, you know. So I don't know if the whole theme is necessarily going to be canon story based or jump scare based. Are they going to revert back to, is this going to be another Star Wars Episode 4 revamped?
Yeah.
You know, like,
As long as they've still got the soundtrack in there, I'm on board.
that's kind of what I was saying. I'm like,
Yeah, you got that bass line. in there.
Did you know that he wrote that in about 3 hours? John Carpenter did?
that does not surprise me
Because they
at all.
didn't have any money apparently for their score. They couldn't afford a composer or an orchestra or anything like that. So he just went into his studio with a synthesizer for about 3 hours or an afternoon, and he came out with the score.
It works. If it works, it works.
Shout out to John Carpenter.
And yeah, luckily Carpenter was working with Jason Blum pretty closely on this one too, so it was able
Really?
to retain its spirit. Yeah.
I hope so, man.
That's the thing, if you
I'm
have-
hoping for the best.
If you have the original, like a lot of the original DNA and people
Yeah.
who worked on the original, I just don't know how you do that with Hitchcock. I don't know what director even wants to take that on.
That's the thing.
Really
what
cocky
other
ones.
What other directors?
Michael
Hold on.
Bay.
Yeah.
Oh my
okay.
God.
Well, Michael Bay has failed at revamping some
imagine-
stuff. But who else has done this take on of a remake and succeeded other than Rob Zombie?
I would say
Like Rob Zombie did a good
Rob Zombie is
Texas Chainsaw horror remake.
but you expect
like-
that from Rob Zombie, though.
Yeah, but he's not a director. Like, he was a musician, an artist. He directed his own music videos. He did direct, but he's not known for that until he did those feature films.
He's a Renaissance man.
That's what I'm saying. You're asking, like, who breaks the mold, and I think Rob's the only one. Other than that, Danny McBride, I love Danny McBride. He's so creative. He's so smart. He's so witty. But, like, he did Alien Covenant, and now he's doing Halloween as a writer and a director now. And, like, that's a lot. That's entrusting a lot of the vision and a lot of the creativity and a lot of the...
The reviews are on his side.
I'm glad. That makes me happy. I just wanted to say, like, I think it's an accomplishment to can't carry that canon over.
Yeah.
Because we were talking
Well,
about
I mean,
who do you trust the keys to the kingdom to?
He's very fortunate that John Carpenter and Jason Blum were there to hold his hand.
I mean, and he worked under Ridley Scott, who
Yeah.
knows a thing or two about
That's what I'm
directing.
saying.
I mean, that's
like,
That helps.
yeah.
Just
When
a
you
little
see
bit.
how Ridley Scott runs the set, which I would love to, but that guy obviously has had a few successes in his life.
just one or two. I don't know.
Did you guys see this movie Gladiator?
Ridley who?
Just saw it the
What?
other day.
What? Oh no, it was Aliens, not Alien. Right. That's right. Okay.
That was the second one.
Thank you, Captain Facetious. So, what are you guys looking forward to coming up in the horror queue? Other than, obviously, Halloween.
I want to see what Rob Zombie has next. I'm a big fan of his directing
Has
style.
he announced
He's a very
anything?
scary director.
Yeah,
House of a Thousand Corpses is one of the most... It's one of the scariest horror movies I've ever seen, just because it's not a traditional horror. It just makes you so uncomfortable. And it's such a sensory overload when you're watching it. Like, you just don't know what's going to come next. Like, you're completely uncomfortable the entire movie.
Are you more uncomfortable watching House of a Thousand Corpses or Saw?
House of a Thousand Corpses.
As far as if you put yourself in the situation.
Well, Saw is just, shock.
Yeah, it's shock horror.
How can I kill you? It's like how many ways I can elaborate this contraption to rip your ribs apart.
The original
Final Destination.
We're talking the original Saw is just a slow buildup of that tension to when
the last scene,
to the Saw scene. Yeah.
Yes.
But what House of a Thousand Corpses is, it's just a sensory overload with, it's like a maze tunnel house where, every room is like lit up in purple neon or pink neon or green neon, and the score is just sounds, like intense sounds, like like a Hitchcockian shower stab scene with the violins, but it's turned up to 1,000, and you're like your stomach's turning, and you just want the movie to end. Like, and it's like 2.5 hours long.
Horror is actually not one of my favorite genres of movies, but one of my problems with some of the Rob Zombie movies I've seen, because I think he actually has a really unique vision, but they seem like long music videos to me. There is no break in
structure.
In his structure. It's just constant music, which I love the music. I think the soundtracks are
I
amazing.
like House of a Thousand Corpses a lot more than his other movies. I mean, the Mike Myers, or no, not Mike Myers. What was the other one he did? It was Halloween, wasn't it?
No, he did House of... I was just actually looking this up the other day.
He remade Halloween.
Did he do Halloween?
Yeah.
He's got like
where Mike Myers is a little kid.
Movies.
It's like the origin story of Mike Myers, wherein he's a little kid and he kills the guy in the woods with a stick.
But I know he's got 4 or 5 movies that he's done at this point under his belt.
Oh, yeah. But House of a Thousand Corpses was just so unique.
And that was his first.
Yeah, that was his first foray
into the water.
Yeah, and I mean, you can tell that he just did whatever he wanted. Like, he didn't follow a formula. Like, it's original. The originality is what I like most about it.
You thinking of Devil's Rejects?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Because that's what I was thinking of too.
Devil's Rejects was after House of a Thousand Corpses and before Halloween.
He did Halloween 2 in 2009. Yeah. So he did Halloween 2 first, then he did House of a Thousand Corpses, then he did Devil's Rejects. He did the remake of Halloween in 2007. So he did Halloween Remake 1 and then Halloween Remake 2, which honestly, I thought, as far as a stand-up...
Are you okay?
I'm dying as I talk about this. Because it's Halloween and because it's Rob Zombie, he's cast a curse on me. No, because of Halloween 1 and 2, the remakes were not nearly the films as Devil's Rejects or House of a Thousand Corpses. Those were, I think, far more creative, far more influential, far more better films than those remakes would have. Not to discredit or take anything away from those remakes, but I want to say, like, it's hard, if not impossible, to remake any horror franchise. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think, how can you make...
Yeah. Because people know this. If the people know the storyline going into it, it's like they're going to expect the scares. They're going to expect, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And
how are you going to make Psycho again?
Yeah, exactly. You can't really make it new and original.
No.
If you had to see one Hitchcock remake, what would it be?
That's a horrible question.
Dude, talk about Hitchcock. We haven't really broke into Hitchcock, but Hitchcock in this series.
You know what I would like to see remade by Hitchcock, if anything, was his TV series. His TV series was amazing.
His TV series was on par, if not better, than Twilight Zone.
Oh, it was very similar to Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it was the prequel to Twilight Zone, basically.
What was it called?
It was the Alfred Hitchcock show.
Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock show.
Oh, is that when he's sitting in the chair and it opens on him and he's
It's
talking
like
like
1940s.
And then he walks
right?
into his silhouette.
Late 40s.
Yeah,
illustration, yeah.
I have seen that.
I would actually, if anything were to be remade in Hitchcock, that's what I would actually like to see and have it thrown up on a streaming service.
I have high hopes for this Twilight Zone remake that Jordan Peele's coming out with.
Yeah,
That's
me
another
too.
thing. I mean, how do you mess with Rod Sterling?
Well, the only thing I wouldn't have high hopes until I saw Get Out. Like now that I saw Get Out, and like now obviously Jordan has done an amazing job. Now I trust the franchise to someone like that, and I go, oh, okay. But if like Jordan Peele just came off of Key and Peele and he's like, I'm gonna remake an Alfred Hitchcock horror movie, I'm like, this is Key and Peele meets Alfred Hitchcock.
Left turn.
Like what the fuck? Like,
But
yeah.
Netflix
Like,
is coming out with some good. Their horror things that they've come out with this year have been really good. There's the Haunting
Haunting
on
Hill House,
Hill House,
yeah.
and then Haunted, which is they follow people who have been haunted in their lives, and it's a retelling where they're not telling the camera. They tell family and friends that have never heard their haunted stories before.
Oh, that's creepy.
And so you're seeing reactions of like their best friend and their mom's like, holy shit, like I kept telling you, oh, it's your imagination, but you're actually haunted, and I am the worst mother ever.
Ugh.
It's really good. It is.
That does sound
They're
good.
like, my child needs to go to the psych ward.
It's like
Can't
someone
believe it's
saw
my offspring.
Roanoke.
Get out of here.
There's this one kid whose mom was really religious, and she just hit him. She just slapped him with the Bible over and over and over again.
Do you have-
Until the ghosts were like, yo, you want us to take care of your mom? And he was like, yeah. And he gave the ghost an offering, and then his mom died 2 days later.
What?
What?
That's super.
I
There,
got
it's
chills.
there are some crazy stories.
Do you
from
guys
this
have any
haunted.
real ghost stories?
Oh yeah.
I have
Yeah?
one kind of unique one from
Let's hear
working
it.
in Chicago. So I worked at this bar in Chicago in my early 20s called the Red Lion English Pub, and it was a very old school, traditional English pub.
The Red Lion.
The Red Lion. It actually has since been renovated because it failed building code.
Yeah.
How
it was
old
actually-
is this building?
Well, the building was built in the 1800s.
no, thank
see,
you.
This is before the fire or after the fire?
The fire stopped almost at the line of where the building is. Just in general, it was a couple blocks away.
Oh no, thank you.
But ultimately, there was it was a family home at one point,
Okay.
and it's in Lincoln Park,
Yeah.
right off Lincoln and
Yeah.
Fullerton.
Oh,
And-
I know it.
Yeah, and there was a young girl who was daughter in the house, and she had died of some sort of fever,
Okay.
random thing that
Yeah,
kills
it's like
everybody. back then.
tuberculosis
Yeah.
or something.
So there was this always idea that the building was haunted, and people would always say they had these experiences, or someone would tap them,
Yeah.
turn around, they would hear footsteps, and the building went through many different ownership changes, and it became listed as one of the most haunted places in the state of Illinois.
Oh my.
Oh.
So all these ghost
I never
tours,
knew that.
yeah, all these ghost tours would always come by, and this is the first bar I started working at, and so.
you had to close it down too, I'm sure.
And this is a family-run bar, so there was an upstairs and a downstairs. So I would bartend the upstairs on Friday nights when we'd get a lot of spillover. And I'm always very skeptical about ghost stories and
yeah.
haunted stories, whatever. But there was some good reason that people would believe that this place was haunted. So one day, my buddy Steve and his girlfriend come in, and we're sitting at the bar downstairs, and the bathrooms downstairs are occupied. So his girlfriend goes upstairs. She comes flying down the stairs about 2 minutes later, screaming Bloody Mary, runs out the door. And as she went to go wash her hands, the faucet turned on by itself.
No, thank you.
And she never set foot back in the bar.
Oh, that's it?
Well, no, that was just, that
I was
was,
like, that happened to me when I
And
was
this
growing
isn't
up.
this isn't one of those motion sensor ones.
No,
This is a knob you got to turn.
Yeah, let's clarify. This is from the
this is an
1800s
This is
or
an old
whatever.
building with old pipes.
Yeah.
So, I figure the plumbing is suspect already in the
And it's
building.
the little
so-
girls. So little girls are known to haunt women's bathrooms.
Yep. And
Moaning Myrtle.
so fast forward about a year later, I'm bartending upstairs. Night's over. It's a good night. I'm closing everything down. I do a full walk to make sure everything's locked up. Go downstairs. The bar is pretty much empty. There's two guys sitting at the end of the bar, one of the owners, and then I sit at the other end and have my shift drink. And all of a sudden, I hear this pitter-patter of feet upstairs as if they're running back and forth.
Like, is that a raccoon up there? Or?
It literally sounds like children's feet going like
Yeah.
back and forth, back and forth. And one of the owners who believes there's a ghost up there, he goes, it sounds like she's up. And the two guys at the end of the bar are going, what's up there? What do you keep up there? And Or just goes, rusty pipes. And then he comes back down to me and goes, I think she's up. And I've been going to this bar for some time. I'd been working there for a few years. Never once in my life had an experience like this. And I swear, everything was locked up. There was not a soul up there.
I was like, is there a caged child in the attic that was actually trying to escape? What's going on?
If there was, I had never noticed it in all the years up there. But,
all right.
so that was my...
I trust your judgment.
In Chicago, I just read an article that there was a funeral home where they found 98 babies in the ceiling of this funeral home.
Wow, that's awful.
They just shut it down. So maybe it was one of those.
But that was the first time I ever felt, maybe there's something to this stuff. And it went on for about 10 minutes and then just completely stopped.
Wow.
I believe that. That's plausible.
What do you think and feel it really was? Like, if you had to go back to that moment in time, would you like walk up there and investigate, or would you be like, nah, I'll just let this be, fuck this bitch, whatever it is.
It's definitely, I'm not gonna mess with that.
I've
no interest in messing with the other side.
What if you knew for sure it was a ghost feet?
I would talk to
Then I
her.
definitely wouldn't go up there. Are you kidding? I've seen Ghostbusters. I'm not gonna go get
You're very lucky.
No way.
My mom makes me go. Like, my mom would be like, yo, my friend just told me this place is haunted, so you have to go sleep over tonight. Have a good day. Bye. And I would sleep over at these fucking haunted ass mansions, just like knowing that I had to go look for some haunted shit.
Why? Why did she want you to find haunted things?
I don't know. It's like, my mom tells me that it's in our blood, that like everyone in the family can feel shit.
You guys
and
have
I feel
spooky
it.
blood?
Yeah, I feel it the least. So when I feel shit, that means that it's a demon or a really badass ghost in this home, which is why she pimps me out.
I've never really had a ghost experience. One time I was home alone and the toilet flushed, but that's about it.
Oh, no.
Really? So I grew up...
Spooky plumbing.
My house that I grew up in was, before me and my family moved into it when I was like 4 years old, the people who lived in it before, the old woman died in that house. So her name was Mrs. McQuigg, and she would haunt the house throughout my teens. And the record player would spin when it would be unplugged. Literally, like, the needle would pop up, move, and go on a rubber mat, and the thing would spin, and the whole device would be unplugged. Candles would be lit on one side of the coffee table, out on the other. I'd be like 10, 12 years old, I remember, and I would see like an apparition coming up the stairs into my room. Like, I would be 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 12-year-old kid going to take a leak down the hallway.
Is this an instance where the house is haunted, or are you haunted?
The house, because she was the one who died in her bed of old age before us as a family moved in, but she had no family members, so no one discovered her for 30 days. So they discovered her because of the smell. And it was in my parents' bedroom, is her master bedroom. So I was the bedroom next door, and my brother was the other bedroom next door. But the realtors, when they sold us the house, didn't disclose this information, which
Why would
not
they?
to disclose, because it's Florida law. You have to. And I'm pretty sure we won that lawsuit after, but knock on wood, I'm not qualified to speak
You should
on
watch
this.
Haunted. The first episode of Haunted is like this, but way more extreme.
The point is, I was terrified as a child. Like, I always knew that, like, I felt like there was something there, right? And I couldn't explain it because I was so young, especially. And then everything kind of subsided as I got older. Like, I don't know, maybe when I hit like 16, 17, 18, I was like, whatever. It might be this, might be that, whatever. When I lived in St. Augustine is the oldest city in America, of 450 years old. It is the most haunted city in America. I gave ghost tours at night into a haunted jail. The jail at St. Augustine is the archetype jail that was designed in a prequel to Alcatraz. So the mechanisms of the jail cells that they used at Alcatraz were first developed in St. Augustine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, one was a prequel. So I would dress in full jail gear and sit in a jail cell at night and jump out and tell stories of the prisoners who died in that jail from the first person in character to give these ghost tours. But between tours, it was stagnant, sitting alone in the most haunted jail in the oldest city in America.
Did you have any haunted experiences?
110%.
Oh, it's
Deb, I went there in the 5th grade, and we did
You know
the
what I'm
exact
talking
same
about,
thing.
yeah.
During the summertime.
I worked
Summertime
there.
in Florida.
Charlie.
And I'm the
You know
only
Charlie?
one. Oh,
You
yeah.
remember Charlie? I was Charlie.
I'm the
I did
only
that.
one in my entire school that's wearing fucking sweatpants and a sweatshirt because I'm freezing all throughout St. Augustine. It's
Which is
90
crazy.
degrees in the
Yeah.
summer in Florida.
with 180%
You'll be-
humidity.
you'll
And I'm
be-
wearing fucking
Look-
sweatpants.
Look,
it was
like,
not okay.
The jail's air conditioned. I'll give them that. All right.
I feel like old jails and like those are very normally haunted places.
The thing,
Old tuberculosis hospitals. Always
here's the
haunted.
thing. There was only 8 executions at this particular jail in its times period of 100 years.
Only
But
executions?
How many people actually died there? Though?
That's the thing. Here's the go. 8 executions where 8 prisoners were hung outside on the oak tree.
Okay.
10 feet away from the building, hung, executed. Hundreds of prisoners died because of dysentery and the conditions inside the jail. They were so gnarly and it was so bedridden with mites. Their bed was moss. You know, oak moss? That's all it was. They all had that. And like a normal like 4-person bunk, they would stack 10 people in. So you would have to not only fight for a bunk, but sleep under it. And the piss from your upstairs bunk, people weren't allowed to piss or piss buckets. They would drip down into the lower bunk. So there was definitely a hierarchy. All the African American and ethnic prisoners were on the bottom bunks, and all the white prisoners were on the top. And it was this crazy torture center.
I would have figured out how to sleep
like,
standing up. Through
Dude,
this.
like you can't. When you learn about the stories, and I had to tell them first person, it brought me into the zone. And me being a method actor, I try to put myself in that position. And I'm sitting in there, and like the first night I'm working, I did all this research. I've heard these stories. I read the books. I did all this time period stuff and all the historical stuff. And then obviously we add fiction to make it entertaining, to make it a tour. You know, because honestly, you gotta sell tickets. You gotta make it entertaining. But when you hear the actual stuff that happened, and I'm sitting in there by myself between 11:30 at night, 12, 12:30, 12:15, between tours, there's like 15 minutes between tours, a jail door would just close, a latch would lock, me in the cell. A light would just unplug, fly out the wall. I would be in there giving a tour, and what we do is we bring the tour in, so I'm telling people the story about this guy, Charlie, who actually got hung. And I'm like, yo, Charlie, you know, I'm doing this, and I didn't do anything wrong. I was wrongly prosecuted. And I bring people into the jail to share my experience of what it's like to be enclosed in like this general population. It's not like cells. It's like a big grouping area. So I close the door behind me, and it's not locked. It's just like physically closed, not like lock closed. So like anyone can just run out. It's not a big deal. But I close it behind me, and there's like lights, you know, from the ceiling coming down, and everyone's facing me as I'm telling the story. In the back of the room is like a mother and like her 12, 13-year-old daughter. And I just remember looking and seeing it. I'm telling the story as the first person. All of a sudden, her daughter's hair just starts lifting up next to her shoulder like this, like somebody's pulling it. Like, I'm not even joking, like this. And I'm the only one who can see it because everyone's facing me. So I'm like, yeah, sure, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And I just like continue on. And then like 15 seconds later, the whole group starts to catch on and sees like a hair floating in the distance and freaks the fucks out, almost tramples me over getting out of there and running down the emergency exit. And that is just one of like several experiences from the experience of working there.
When did the jail close?
1862 or 3.
Jeez.
Just in time for the Civil
No,
War?
I'm sorry, 1962 or 3.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was at 18. Dude, you're talking about one of the most racist, incredible. This is St. Augustine is a town where Martin Luther King got beat on the streets for protesting. Like,
Is it a big town?
no, it's America's oldest city. It's a small town. It's like without the college and the tourism that's there for the historical aspect, it would maybe be like 2,000 people in total. Like it's small. It's about 45 minutes south of Jacksonville. Honestly, I lived there for 2.5 years. It's one of my favorite hidden gems in Florida. I love it, not because of all the crazy racist, horrible
Besides
shit,
the racism.
but because of the shit that was happening to overcome that, and all. Like, this is one of the most influential historical points in American civilization, and I think every person, we as Florida kids, went there as school field trips.
Everyone had to go.
So it's a spooky place.
It's a spooky ass place, but it's also one of the surf capitals
That
in
and
Florida.
Savannah, Georgia.
And Savannah, but it's only
Savannah's quite haunted also.
Yeah,
it's because of the time period. There's grave sites in St. Augustine that have been there since the 1500s. So, like, I'm sitting
insane.
on the
The
seawall.
1400s?
Yes.
What?
The city's over 450 years old. It was a Spanish colony before it was an American colony.
Yeah, and when people come, I mean, they're dying immediately.
Yeah.
They get to America.
You gotta think, there were Spaniards and
That's
Catholics.
how it worked back then.
And here you go. You have the Catholic cemetery, and then you have everyone else. And that's how it worked. You have the Native Americans, you have the Protestants, you have the Jews, you have everybody else, and then you have the Catholics, because they were the Spanish Empire and they owned like the fort and they had the structure of the politics and all that stuff. There's a story about a bishop that exploded from his coffin in the early 1900s.
That's just because they didn't release the gas. from
Yeah,
this internal
Yes!
I was gonna
You're
say.
exactly right.
I was going to say there's an explanation for that.
There is, but everyone thought it was superstition for a long time because they couldn't explain it from the science. And so many of these stories transcend places like St. Augustine, Savannah, and they're embedded in legend and myth and this over, dramatized stories. And then really when you get down to it, it's like what happened in St. Augustine is they found this bishop, they enclosed him and they wanted to seal him in a glass coffin with steel sides so that people could travel. Once the bishop died, he was a very significant bishop in Florida in the 1800s. He died, and people needed to travel by horse and
They
carriage
wanted
from
to give
all
him
over.
the linen treatment.
They wanted to preserve his body so he didn't decay, so they put him in airtight. Yeah, like glass/metal container, and they left him there for like a month. It's the hot Florida heat. It's the summer.
They forgot
it's fucking humidity.
They forgot to vacuum him out.
They didn't embalm him. They didn't do anything.
Just slap him in there, call it a day.
Dude, like
Even the ancient Egyptians
they
even knew you got to get
pour
the gunk
salt
out
all
of there.
over.
there's physical proof, genetic physical proof that like they did this, and then they were all mourning this bishop's passing a month and a half later at the main Catholic church. Like the fucking king and queen of Spain came because it was such a significant part of the empire that they came and like honored this fucking bishop or whoever.
Was he blown up by
And
then?
He was in the glass. It was a glass top and the metal surroundings and a coffin that was to be viewed by people coming to pay their respects. But the fact that it took them so long to travel there to pay their respects, the decomposing body expanded gas and exploded in the middle of the ceremony because it was the matter of the hot bodies. All those like 200 people packed in a hot stone church. It wouldn't normally have been that hot, but it was so many people packed in there. The hot bodies raised the temperature and acted like a cooking oven and cooked the body. So the fucker exploded and spraying bishop pieces on the congregation.
You are now covered in relics.
Like, could you imagine in the 1800s if you're just like mourning the saint bishop and then he just blows up and like, wouldn't you think
But that
Satan?
wasn't the 1800s.
It
That
was
like
1901, 1902. It was early 19, late 18.
Spain came here for that?
Yeah. I mean, let me get the dates correct, but late 1800s, early 1900s.
I get to see the king of Spain. Good thing we sold this land.
He didn't come as a colony. He came to honor the respects of the bishop who presided over the area. It was a Catholic thing.
They really blew it.
Oh, good pun.
They really blew it. I mean, they were pretty big idiots. I mean, like, come on.
It's not that
If
they
that's
were
the
idiots.
time period, they should have probably thought of that.
The Egyptians did
Like,
it.
yeah.
Look,
I don't see any exploding
were.
sarcophaguses.
I'm just saying, like,
Sarcophagi?
they're crazy stories. We can trace the roots back to logical meaning.
Sarcophagus.
Where was
I get to see at the funeral home is like, well, this is the Cadillac see-through one with the ventilation, but if it's not in your price range, we also have this one over here.
Yeah. Look, this one may or may not explode on you, but it's about $200 cheaper.
Chances are it won't, but
But if you get it in the ground fast enough, it won't explode on you.
yes. Can you imagine being in the front row?
Well, that's a big problem with mausoleums. Mausoleums explode all the time.
Do they really?
I don't know.
They have to put they all have to have holes in them.
How do you guys?
Mausoleums have been known to blow up from the gases on the inside.
Oh man,
Yikes.
just cremate me. I'm done.
That's what I
I
said.
have no interest in any of that ritual burial
I
nonsense.
want you to spend as much money on my burial as possible and build a giant pyramid and put me in the middle of it. Spend millions of dollars.
I just found out that
Or you
Disney
could just
World,
burn me.
they have to have like sensory cameras in their haunted mansion because people will travel and spread people's ashes in the haunted mansion.
Oh, it's awful.
At Disney World?
Yeah, at Disney World and Disneyland.
That's
it happens
crazy.
like,
Maybe that's why they turned it into Guardians of the Galaxy.
honey, that's the
Wrong-
Tower
wrong
of Terror.
ride.
Oh, is
Wrong ride.
that a different thing?
It
The
sure
Tower
is.
of Terror.
What's
Yeah.
the haunted house then?
It's still
Haunted Mansion.
Oh, the haunted mansion.
It
Right.
still is the haunted mansion. that one.
We got
It's all haunted.
we got to do something with this. I'm tired of people spreading their ashes in the park. We're gonna rebrand it.
Nick, what would you do? What would you do if you had a reign of Disney World and the attractions? If you were going to design a haunted house, what scares you the most? What would you think?
Well, I think with Disney, the goal is not to necessarily
Maybe not
scare and
Disney. What about
terrify.
Yeah.
Halloween Horror Nights? You choose the scariest thing because this year the Poltergeist was the scariest haunted house.
I don't know. Like I said, horror is not my specific genre, so I would probably subcontract it out to one of my friends who's really good at this stuff. So I'll executive produce this and call up my buddy Randy in Chicago and my buddy Sean. Like, you guys go make the craziest, weirdest nonsense you could ever think of, and they would.
So, what would you like to do if not horror? If somebody gave you a big bag of money and said, "Hey, go do what you want," what would Nick do?
I'd probably do something similar to what I'm doing now, which is arts and education.
Living your dream, man.
Yeah, I've been an artist my whole life, and a couple years ago I started volunteering with this group called Art Division, and it takes young adults that are in underserved communities, and we teach them art and how to basically have a career path if they can't afford college, and that's been one of the coolest things I've been able to do. So I'd set something up to continue that type of legacy. Absolutely.
I didn't know that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so it's amazing when you see how much incredible talent is out there that just needs a little bit of direction.
What's your favorite story that has come out of this? Like, you're like, this is a success story, and I am just so happy that I was there and this happened.
Seeing students not only get their first show, but then serious collectors, their skill levels through the roof. And I would say the program where I volunteer at, a lot of the people who teach there are top of their field professionals. So, and working at Disney, we were able to start up a mentorship program for students to work with our publishing artists, which is our fine art team at Disney, which is some of the best artists in the whole company worldwide. So to see them have those opportunities and make those connections in that network.
Are they
Amazing.
drawing their...
It's great to see
Drawing,
the fruits of
painting.
your labor.
Yeah, it's and I have nothing to do with starting the organization. I was living a block away from it at one point in MacArthur Park, and I was walking my dog around the block, and there was these students setting up an art show, and
It's very Anthony Kiedis of you, by the way.
as an artist, I was like, "Oh, what are you guys setting up?" They were setting up a Frankenstein show, actually.
Nice.
And they were more interested in hanging out with my dog, which your cousin Casey convinced me to keep, which I've had for 9 years now.
Is that?
Jetson.
Oh yeah.
He's the greatest dog ever. And so they said, "Come to our show on Saturday. It'll be awesome." I said, "All right." So I went to the show, and then I realized all these celebrities were there, and all these old white people were there. I'm like, so this is a little bit something different than a couple of kids setting up a gallery. And then I found out what it was. And it's this whole network of people that just believe that education should be available to everybody. And I said, how can I help out? And then 3 years later, I'm still
Hey
volunteering.
man,
twice
arts
a week.
education is the first to go when the funding slips.
Yeah, and I would honestly say stacked up against a lot of art schools that I've seen, or talking with guys that I work with that are considered top of their field, and seeing what the students have done, they say this program is probably better than most art schools they've ever seen.
Amazing.
And it's
What's it called?
It's called Art Division. It's
Art Division.
completely free, 18 to 26-year-olds.
How can I sign up?
You just come on down, and they'll give you a little survey of what you're interested in, and what you kind of want to focus in. Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's an incredible opportunity, and it's 100% free. So our students pay for nothing, which is, I think, the coolest part about it. And a lot of our students have either gone on to have professional careers or get into a school. I focus now on career counseling, resume building, practice interviews.
That's awesome.
Design. There's a whole cadre of amazing people that help out there. So,
what qualifies a teacher?
For me, I have a lot of experience. I've been doing art professionally since I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Give our listeners a little background.
Yeah, how did you start?
Yeah.
So
take us back to the beginning of horror days.
School is never my bag. I suck
Join
at
the
it.
rest of the club on this show.
Hello.
And having a fair amount of learning disabilities, which you put in a lot of effort and time, and you get zero fruit for your results of everything. But drawing was always this escape for me as a little kid since I was about 4 years old. And I could just get lost in it, and I was good at it. And I was very fortunate to have parents who recognized that and said, well, if this is what you love,
Very important.
keep doing it. And so I did. And when I was as you're growing up, you always want to have all these different careers and jobs. Mine were always art focused. I wanted to be a cartoonist. I wanted to be a painter. I wanted to be an illustrator.
Is it fair to say that you were trying to find a way to monetize your passion?
Well, no. Part of it, that came later on. When my parents said, when I decided to be an art major in art in school, my parents were like, go for it, but make sure you can make a living. And that's, when I was going into college, when I was in high school, that's when I started to have to figure out what it was. But initially, it was just what attracted me. So watching Saturday morning cartoons, like, I want to do that. I want to make that.
Yeah.
Or the first time I saw the movie Fantasia, seeing art and music strictly together. I was never a Disney
Shout
kid.
out Fantasia.
And I was always a Warner Brothers, I was Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. That was more my shtick, but Fantasia was a huge pathway for me to see how art and music can come together, two of my favorite things. I don't play any music. I'm really good at listening to it, though. So I wanted to be a cartoonist. And then I remember being in New Orleans when I was 12 with my parents, my family, and we were having breakfast at this place, and unbeknownst to us, there was a big animation convention, and there's this table of Warner Brother artists right next to us.
Oh my.
And my mom was like, you have to go talk to them. You have to go talk to them. Ask them. And I'm terrified.
Shout out to moms.
Yeah. No, you could put me in front of the biggest celebrity in the world. I'd have no problem. But going up to those guys were my celebrities. That was those guys are doing it. And so I went up to them and asked them, my mom literally pushed me in their general direction. Then I was standing at their table. I had to say something. And, I introduced myself and I said, I saw you guys are animators. What should I do? How do I get into your field? And they said, figure draw every single day, which for those of you who don't know is basically drawing humans from life, in a sketch pad very quickly, basically getting a gestural drawing that you can develop later. How fast can you draw somebody with general accuracy?
It's like working out.
Yeah, it's doing your stretching before you work out, actually. And they gave me a few potential art schools to look into as I got older.
Amazing.
And so that was, once I had that kind of understanding, and my parents and I, we were in Florida again. We went and looked at Ringling School of Art, and this is maybe when I was 14.
Shout out Ringling.
15, yeah.
Sarasota.
I didn't go there. I would have loved to. I don't think I was good.
What, did they not let you in?
Well, I didn't.
Those fucking
Is
idiots.
Ringling the same thing as the Clown College?
No.
No.
It's one of the top art schools in the world.
Yeah.
Is it?
Sarasota,
I have no
right?
idea.
Yeah.
Sarasota.
Ringling College of Art and Design is literally...
My brain goes straight to the Ringling Brothers. I'm sorry.
I ended up not.
Which is in Galveston, not too far away from Sarasota, ironically enough.
Yeah.
But
I
what
ended
he's
up-
talking about is like the Juilliard of art schools.
Really? It's like Cal Arts.
Yeah.
It's up.
No, I would
Yeah.
say
To
more than
Chicago.
Cal Arts. Yeah.
But it's in the same. It is a dedicated practice.
Yeah.
This is.
This is
Big
serious.
time
Yeah.
pros come out of there
Yeah.
in every field of art.
And the gallery there and the artwork that they have there that they host and curate, they do Dali, a lot of Dali stuff because of the Dali in St. Pete. They I can't. You can speak on it better than I can, but that whole culture, that whole echelon.
It's getting into Harvard. If you're not.
Yes.
So you checked it out, or
Well, I was a teenager, but we were in Florida. I think for a baseball tournament, and my dad's like, "Let's go check it out." Sweet. It was amazing. It was absolutely beautiful campus. By the time I actually was into figuring out where to go for school and what my interest had turned into creatively, when I was in high school, in my rebellious years, fueled by heavy metal, I loved album art, and so I would always be drawing Iron Maiden covers.
Really?
And those album covers are very interesting.
Oh, incredible! Derek
They
Riggs.
are. They're art
a
pieces.
huge influence. Pushead from Metallica. The guy who did all the Metallica work.
Did you do any of you saw the Led Zeppelin stuff, obviously, growing up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Crowley?
Yeah, it's so Aleister Crowley, that whole world.
Dude.
But,
and these fools don't know about that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's some cult stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I found this passion of creating art while listening to music. It was a way for me as a rebellious teen and real angsty to just channel my frustrations out onto the page. And I said, my parents were like, if you're going to make a career out of art, figure out a way to make a living. And I figured, hell, I could do album art and make a living and be perfectly happy. And so that's what really started it. I started doing art for local bands.
First gig.
Yeah, I started doing art for local bands for free when I was 15 years old in Chicago. And, did a good cover, good logo. And then someone else saw that in another band. Hey, would you do ours? I said, oh, I can try. I didn't know how to handle it.
So you would listen to the music while you were drawing it?
Well, first, I have a whole method for creating album art. One of the things that I believe as a designer, and there's different genres of art. So as a designer, when I'm working with a musician, I'll initially have an initial sit down with them and say, are there any overarching themes or principles or contextual ideas that are influencing this album, influencing this music that are really important to you, that you really want to have some sort of visual representation in, because you want there to be a tie. You want the art to tell a story with the music.
Right.
Which was why I got into doing it in the first place, because all these other great artists did it so well. And sometimes they'll be like, nope, just have at it. And other times there will be a mix of that. So then what I'll do is I'll take the music, whatever they can give me. Sometimes the album's not done yet, or it's in different stages of production. And I'll listen to it for a month is my goal, is just to immerse myself in that music, immerse myself in whatever their message may be, the context of the album might be. I'll listen to it while I'm driving, while I'm getting ready for bed, when I wake up, to feel every type of possible connection to it, or the connection that someone could have to it. And then once you're immersed in it, oftentimes it'll just start, your brain will just start firing ideas. At least that's the way it works for me. So that's always been my process to it, and to try to make something that's not necessarily indicative of my personal fine art styles, but something that someone will look at and feel the music through a visual experience as well to tell a story. And that's what I love doing when it comes to art and music. So that's what I started doing when I was 15, which,
by the way, before you go any further, I got to give a big shout out to how you have done this at 15. Because if you guys had listened and noticed the notoriety that it takes to even consider Ringling as an option when you're that young is an accomplishment in and of itself. So the fact that he is taking on this career at 15, he's just starting out and being contracted. I know you said free, but come on, pat yourself on the back.
Well, it was initially for free, and then other bands start seeing it. They see
that's what I'm saying.
And then you have a budget of $50. Yeah. But still,
how about by the time you're
I was happy
18, 19, 20, it's a good side pocket.
I was blown away to see to know the fact that people wanted to put my art on something. To me, that was the payoff. I didn't even care about the money. It was for the fact that somebody...
True artist.
Well, you're 15, you're just excited that your work is out there. And then the band that I was specifically doing art for back then was this band called Ditchwater. They were selling out House of Blues. They were selling out the Metro in Chicago.
Oh my God.
They were, when I first started doing art for them, they were playing VFW halls and coming up. And then all of a sudden, they're selling out the top local venues, or even where major bands play, that are 1,200 person capacities. And to see that's your shirt at the merch booth, that's your art on it, and people are buying it. You're not getting a cut, but you don't care. and that you get to go along with the band and hang out. And
You're like, I
be part
drew
of whole
that.
scene.
Hey, bass player, give me laid, bro.
And what was really cool when I was coming up in that scene.
Sorry, didn't mean to speak on your behalf. Sorry.
One step between the roadie and the band. You know,
Microphone drops.
Goddamn fucking mic.
you work with the band. What do you do? I'm not in the band, but I also don't schlep their gear either. Yeah. So it gives you that one little notch in there.
So after Little 15-Year-Old does that, what launched you to your next project?
Well, I ended up eventually. Yeah, I went to college. I went to DePaul University. I ended up staying
Nice.
local.
Blue
I
Devils.
applied for DePaul.
I really wanted to go to the Art Institute. There's a couple schools I applied to, RIT in New York, upstate New York, which I didn't think I was going to get into, and somehow I did. And then I got in there and I was scared because they had a suicide rate there. Although I wasn't an engineer.
Rochester, right?
Yeah, Rochester
that's one of
Technology.
those-
It's another
yeah,
top school.
Very depressing place.
So
If you're maybe just trying to crunch numbers, but
it's the top. They have one of the best media programs in the world.
yes.
RIT.
Yeah, which I got into, and then I was too scared that I was going to fail. So DePaul had a pretty decent art program. It was in a city that I was very comfortable in, and I wanted to be in a big city. So I ended up becoming an art major at DePaul, which didn't even have a school of art, which was hilarious. But all our teachers, all our professors were from the Art Institute of Chicago.
Oh.
So I had this
There you go.
amazing education at that school, and my parents were key on, hey, if you're going to do this, get a well-rounded education, which really came into play as you create art. When you can take your experiences and then historical knowledge base and apply that to, a visual construct, you can really start creating what I'd say is substantial art. So being in a major music city like Chicago, having a love for music and the nightlife scene, it was a real easy transition for me to keep doing bands for, art for college bands. The band Disturbed was just blowing up as I was in high school and going into college, and the band I worked with was friends with those. So I got to hang out with those guys as they were blowing up in their big world and seeing that whole transition.
I boxed many a time with my heavy bag, probably to your artwork right plastered on the heavy bag.
Well, I didn't do any artwork for Disturbed. I would have loved to. I would have.
Because I was like, if that's the case, I'd definitely punch that. I'm sorry. I was gonna apologize.
No. There was a point where I almost did. So the guy who was doing the original Disturbed art before they got signed, he got into some beef with the band. And so I was in that zone. I'm like, well, I could do this. Some of my buddies at high school were related to one of the guys in the band at the time. And so we would go watch them. They rehearsed a few blocks from my high school in the south side of Chicago. And so we'd go watch them and sneak into the bar shows where they would play at Champs on 86th and Central in Chicago.
Nice.
We would sneak in there, and so I kind of had a relationship with those guys to an extent. And then they got signed by Warner Brothers, and you get signed by a big label, which I found out later.
And then you
on.
never saw them again.
Well, when Draymond I was actually working at this nightclub Crowbar in Chicago, and when Draymond was home or off tour, he would come in with his friends and circle. He knew a few of the bartenders there, and he'd come do shots with all of us. He always kept it pretty chill, which was rad.
Good. That's what you like to see.
But then I actually don't like their music anymore. I like their first two albums, and then they really fell off for me.
Shout out. Disturbed. Not as good anymore.
Yeah.
Well, where really did the integration of? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but in college. But I want to see, is there a triggering event when music became influential to your art, or was it a gradual process? How did this evolve?
I would say that
because
goes back.
where you're at now, I think is an art. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd like to speak. I was just saying, I think where you're at now is a completely different place than where you were back then.
Very differently. It is. And so I would say art or music became very influential in my art probably when I was 10 or 11. And it was having that Fantasia moment or watching Tom and Jerry and seeing
Do you
how
choreograph the music to your art?
I just it's kind of subconscious. I just let it happen. So if I was, an angry teenager, really angry at the world for no reason, the music I was listening to,
raging hormones. Why is this boner happening? I can't get rid of it. Stop hounding me.
Oh, no, I had no problem getting rid of it. That was very easy.
I tried to make jokes. I'm sorry. It was all good.
But
None of you guys are laughing, which is awesome.
Well,
as a
season
teenager,
2 of
that's
Big
not hard to
Mouth.
figure out.
When it's funny, I will laugh. Anyway.
Oh, shut up, Thomas.
Season 2 of Big Mouth did it better. I saw that first. So
Look at this.
True.
Look at these kids. These
Sounds like a cat fight. I'm staying out of it.
you're no Nick Kroll, Dev.
I wasn't trying to be.
So the album art, just that was how
really
you
started when I
out.
was in high school. The album art,
Wow.
but making art to music was a very. I still have tons of notebooks and drawing books that are all music-driven narratives. Just drawing crazy, random, horror-looking stuff. Actually, that's when I did really like a lot of horror and this hardcore metal and
that has since expanded into other avenues, like perhaps like music videos or.
I've worked in a lot of music videos, but that came actually much later.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So when I was 20, I took an internship at Leo Burnett, which was one of the top ad agencies in the world. Their global headquarters is in Chicago. They invented the Marlboro Man. So I've actually seen the original Marlboro Man jacket, which is framed in glass. Cancer. But
does it really have a subtitle say cancer?
no, if it did, it'd be awesome.
That would be.
But they invented Toucan Sam, Tony the Tiger.
my God.
I mean, it is one of the most. If you've ever seen Mad Men, Leo Burnett's mentioned multiple times because they were the king of tobacco advertising.
Yeah.
They
Still are.
they spawned from Edward Bernays. Do you guys know who Edward Bernays is? Edward Bernays was Freud's cousin. He wrote a book in the early 1900s called Propaganda. And it was the spawn for all the 20th century advertising, like Don Draper and everything.
Yeah, it's
same thread, same everything. Just Google Edward Bernays
and so when I got to
get one.
the advertising world, which I realized was not something I wanted to do professionally at the time.
just
But what I
soul-sucking?
learned about no, it wasn't at all. It was an amazing place to work. They took
Ad
such
agencies
good care
are
of their,
actually oftentimes very fun offices to work in.
we had a corporate softball team, and we were the worst team in the league. But every team wanted to play us. Most of the people I worked with, their warm was like a joint and a beer and a cigarette. But our company, because as an advertising agency, you were playing teams like IBM and Microsoft, all these big. And so our company was like, well, we want to do their advertising.
Oh, yeah.
So they would buy us 2 kegs on Rush Street at one, I forgot what bar it was, but we'd always go to. And then the entire tab was on us. So we would take the other team out, get them trashed after they just stomped us in a game.
Go to Dublin's or something.
And party with them, yeah. And so we were known as the party team. And everyone wanted to play us for that reason.
Yo, let's play those guys. They're gonna fucking suck and buy us kegs.
Hey, that's business, baby.
Yeah. But what I learned at Leo Burnett was the business side of creativity and how you create production and follow methodology and then have to work with the balance of working with a picky client or having a tight box to work within.
Yeah.
One of the questions I'll never forget when I interviewed, and keep in mind this is right as we're about to storm Iraq and the Truth Tobacco
Wait, the first time or the second time?
Second time.
Okay, just making clear.
So to interview, I had to walk through a wall of protesters, truth protesters for tobacco and anti-war protesters. So I'm 20 years old, walking through protesters, and I go up, meet everybody, and in my interview, one of the questions was, do you have any moral objection to working on military or tobacco campaigns? And I knew that question would very specifically determine any potential fate that I could get. And I just said, hey, and I actually meant it was people know what smoking does. People know what you're signing up for when you join the military, and it's people's right to make their decisions on their own. And then 4 days later, I got offered to do that.
That's an answer a CEO wants to hear.
And I was specifically working on Philip Morris campaigns.
Amazing.
Which was, it was an amazing experience to work with the level and caliber of people that I was and what I learned. Some of the stuff I have still carried throughout my creative career to this day. When you work, is an opportunity to work with the best of the best in the field. And
that's what you need when you're just starting out at a very young age.
And so that was a pivotal moment in my life creatively, knowing that I learned a bunch, but I also didn't want to go into advertising. When I was 24, through a very random chain of events of people that I'd worked with in the bar scene, I met some people that worked at Virgin Records, and I got hired at Virgin Records as a graphic artist in New York City when I was 24 years old, and
That's amazing.
Got to move out. And the guy who brought me on board, Sean Mosier-Smith, if you ever look up his stuff, he is probably one of the most iconic creatives in the music industry that you've probably never heard his name.
Yeah.
But it turned out my first week there ended up being his last week because all the Capital, Virgin, EMI merged. And he was head of SVP of creative for the global label. They let him go after he brought all the different departments together, and then which was the best thing that happened for his career.
Right.
And then I was given an ultimatum to either stay in New York and no longer work for the label, maybe as a contractor, or to go to LA and work at the Capitol Records Tower. So I had 15 days to buy a car.
You chose LA.
And I came out here and worked at Capitol Records for a couple of years.
Is that how you met our close friend Casey? Is that he came through Capitol?
No, not at all, actually.
Because he was at Def Jam. We talked about this.
He was still at Def Jam
when you guys met.
When we met.
Oh, okay, cool.
But we met through a mutual friend, Matt Hannon, who Casey grew up with in upstate New York in Syracuse.
Shout out, Matt.
Matty.
Bringing the universe together, man. Yeah. Full circle.
And Casey and I hit it off right away, and to this day, he's one of my best friends.
So you came out here and started working at Capitol, and then once you got to a certain point in your career and you felt comfortable, you branched out on your own, and you said, I'm going to do my own thing now, or?
When I was in the music industry, the industry was at its lowest of the low. So there was no money to do anything. They hadn't figured out a new revenue model. There's this old guard.
So this was the point in time when iTunes was disrupting everything, and Napster was sucking up all the money.
Do you have a period of years, like a time reference?
2007 through 2000.
That was before they got their business model corrected.
So what was interesting there, I remember when Napster came out, and
that was like
this big hubbub.
2002, 3.
I was in high school, and my friends and I were like, well, why is the record label suing everybody? Why don't they just buy it and make it their own, which was what they should have done. Yeah. But instead they spent
Metallica.
Tens of millions of dollars.
Straight up, fuck you guys. I saw you in live in concert. Yeah. It was nothing more than a Super Bowl halftime show. Suck you.
And it was whack-a-mole. You hit Napster and 10 more pop up. Yeah. And so you had this old guard in the music industry that was saying, we need to force records on people. And then you had this new guard, young people going, nah, that's not the way it's going to be. And it was a battle, at the executive level. And, so that wasn't having that dream of working at a record label. Making art for musicians where, I just thought it was going to be, I get to go in, I'm going to sit with musicians, and we're going to come up with these crazy ideas.
Music for a month.
And that's the way Sean approached a lot of stuff.
You're going to curate content, right? Because in that day, it was like, let's go scout musicians. Let's go listen to bands. Let's go listen to who's up and coming. And then if you believe in somebody and you want to coach them, it's like, bring them. And there's pride in that. There's accomplishment. There's skill. There's experience. All these things that are involved.
And a lot of that was
SoundCloud doesn't include skill.
SoundCloud didn't exist. Didn't even exist.
Listen, the upvotes on Reddit don't matter. All right, I'm sorry.
But I'd learned a lot of great things there, even though it was kind of the dark period of the industry. Yeah. I worked with some really incredible people that I'm still friends with today, and people who took chances on me. And that ultimately led me to an amazing career that I've had so far, still to this day in LA with, its ups and downs. But even at Capitol, I still got to work on amazing campaigns. I worked on the marketing creative for Katy Perry's debut album. I was part of that team.
Oh, really?
I worked on Coldplay's Viva La Vida album. I worked on Malice in Wonderland by Snoop Dogg. I worked on Alice in Chains. So I was able to actually have my hand in a lot of these major artists that, I listened to some of them growing up, like Alice in Chains or Snoop Dogg. And to see, I remember the first time I did a snipe poster for those of you we call snipes. It's the ones that get plastered up on the side of walls. Yeah. It was a Jay Holiday poster, and it lined an entire city block. Or a Lenny Kravitz piece I had put together was gigantic in Times Square. To see that stuff happen, I put that together, is pretty mind-blowing.
Right.
Especially as someone who's, in my early 20s. And then at a certain point, when I didn't see a real path forward in the industry, I had met some really cool people. Actually, the guy who designed this, an artist named Kai Arns, who's a legend in the music art world now. Him and I randomly became friends through an interesting chain of events that was art and music related. And I had an opportunity to branch off and try this music management opportunity where I was going to be part doing art scout, band scouting, and then as well as creating all the marketing and identities visually for up and coming artists that we picked up. And the goal was to find some artists and then push them to that next level. So to have that type of control had a year guaranteed contract was amazing, and I got to do a lot of experimental work in that time, and then realized music management was the worst thing in the world. A lot of babysitting, a lot of coddling, a lot of missed time calls because people can't wake up.
Well, I think I have a ton of questions for you, but one that just referencing the story you just told, coming off of being a youngster in the industry and doing all these works for these notable artists that are being celebrities and up and coming in the industry, what do you do? What advice do you have for someone? And I'm gonna just assume this, but have you? I'm assuming at some point you don't agree or you don't find passion in someone's music that you get contracted for.
Oh, all the time.
So how do you bridge that gap? Where's that creative process come from? How do you make that, like, I still want this to be good. This is my craft. I still want to be passionate, but like, it is a job, and like, you know, you gotta do this.
There are two ways you have to. I think this is my personal opinion that you have to look at it. So if you're say working at the record label and you get put on a project that might not be your personal interest, well, it becomes your personal interest. You're getting paid to do that.
Right.
So find a way to make it your personal interest no matter what. And you have to remember that you're putting something out there in the world for people to see. And you're the one who's making that. So no matter what, make it the best damn thing you can make. I don't care if you're not a fan of the music or a fan of the individual making the music, which I've experienced. But your goal is to make something amazing that people are going to connect with. And so no matter what, if you're on a payroll and that's your job, you become passionate about it. You find something to be passionate about, knowing that your name is technically representing it.
Yeah, you have to find your angle on it.
If you're independent and you're not, sometimes you take jobs because you have to pay rent.
Right.
And it's the same mentality. If I'm taking on a job that I'm not excited about, but it's going to pay me, because often in my personal career, a lot of the jobs that paid me that I didn't want to do were the ones that I needed to take for rent.
Yeah.
And the projects I wanted to do weren't paying me shit.
Of course.
So
of course.
There's that fine line. You have to be able to draw that line of, all right, I need to pay for rent. I need to feed my dog. I need to eat. And I still want to do this over here. And so finding that balance, and then when you start finding that balance and you create an ebb and flow, sometimes you'll have clients, and I've worked creatively in just about every field you can think of. When you find that ebb and flow, you find people that you enjoy working with, even if the stuff you're doing is not your favorite. But you find a great relationship and say, man, I know this project is going to take me no more than a week. I'm going to get paid X. And it's going to be easy. The client's going to love it. They trust my vision. There might be 1 or 2 revisions, and then it's out the door. And then all of a sudden you have, 2 months of rent and running around to do where you can put it into your own work or your own time. When you have a nice balance, say no. If you're not going to be passionate about something, say no. Or if there's something you're really passionate about and you have, some rent money stacked away, or you're working on a project that's going to pay your rent, say yes to everything that you want to do, that you love to do, that's going to give you what I would call maybe not monetary equity, but experiential equity.
It's important to say yes.
Yeah, it's
very important.
I say yes all the time.
Yeah.
And even if I'm not going to make any money off something, knowing that I'm meeting new people or working with new people or going to get to work on a passion project that's got production value behind it or money behind it, you're going to walk away having learned something that you're going to apply later on in your craft.
Totally.
So saying yes, especially when you're young, it's okay to be poor when you're young. It's okay to be poor and rack up that experience by saying yes to stuff that will challenge you, that'll give you new experiences. And even say yes occasionally to stuff, especially when you're young, that you might not normally take, because it will teach you something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will teach you how to think a certain way or see a different way. And that was something that, again, going back to Leo Burnett, that I had learned was when you're working in corporate advertising, you have very specific windows that you can work within. And to maximize creativity, sometimes it really forces you to work within tight confines to really push your creative envelope of how to write copy or visually communicate the concept to the person. So and my buddy Kai, who before he became this really well-known international artist, he would be working on these amazing projects. Everyone in this room has seen his art. I guarantee it. So he's done all the runs for the Hollywood Bowl for years.
I was like, he's not Banksy, is he?
No. Or is he? But he's done a bunch of the runs for the Hollywood Bowl fine art posters to Greek theater.
Oh yeah,
a lot of
major musicians contract him. So I was his right-hand man for a long time when he didn't have any budget or anything, and it was just an idea of let's go make something. Or even when he finally got a budget, I remember we worked on the Devo "What You Do" music video. So
I brought that up before the show, bro.
He was
which I saw them when they came to the Hollywood Bowl.
So he was the director of that video, and he had a very small budget, and he opted to lose money on the video to make a better product because that's his creativity going out in the world. He wanted it to be the best it could be. So sometimes to get that extra to step up on that next step, you have to sacrifice a bit up front.
Absolutely.
But then, get to work with Queens of the Stone Age, worked with Glenn Campbell on his last couple of videos. Kai is one of my best friends to this day, but he always took me under his wing, even when he didn't have money to necessarily pay me or even pay himself. He always made sure that, I was looked out for, which was, having a mentor like him and someone who became my best friend over the past 10 years in LA has been a real, eye-opening experience. And to see someone who was struggling as an artist to pay studio rent and get from one thing to another and then go over that hump and have substantial success was really amazing.
That's why we're all here.
Yeah,
it's an important lesson.
Yeah, and
say yes, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and if there's one thing I absolutely learned from him, whatever project he's working on, it's the most important project in the world in his life. Whether it's something he's super personally stoked about or not, he makes it the most important thing happening in his life, and then the product end result is there. So that's something that, sitting with him, on a regular basis that you just see, and it's evident in his work.
Focus.
Yeah. So that's been a real privilege and experience. And that's something I try to, even with what I do at Art Division, people took chances on me throughout various phases in my career and coming up to where I'm at now. And to be able to try to open doors for other people and take chances on people, it's very essential for those of us who have had any amount of success to make sure that next guard has opportunities, especially ones that don't have representation or don't have a voice. And that's something I try to iterate to the students. A lot of them are very thankful for what we do, and sometimes even feel bad for accepting our time and help. And I said, no, you're going to be the person, in 10 years that's going to be doing this for somebody else. That's how you pay it back, is by paying it forward.
If I could hold your mic and drop it for you, I absolutely would, because I've been saying that shit for years, yo. Like straight up, like honestly, that character of someone who wants to approach the craft in that manner speaks a world of difference. And I think that's a very, very important point to resound home. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's not just gaining success and overcoming these obstacles. It's passing the torch and teaching how you did it and sharing these experiences with other humans, and just, the changing of the guard and evolving. We're all here to help each other. And I think that the lessons and the stories that you tell are invaluable to others, because, and with so many artists, but, you in particular, God fucking damn mic.
Dropping the mic
and letting it go. Anyways, Nick, thank you so much for fucking coming on, man. Is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with other than your plugs, like any words of wisdom, any final thoughts? What can you tell the next generation? What can you pass off, brother?
I'd say find your balance. Find your balance between what you love to do, what you need to do. Say yes to opportunity, say yes to experience, even if it turns out to be a bad experience. Walk away questioning what you could take out of it. Take something out of everything you do and apply it to your life.
Keep learning.
Yeah, find balance, find your passion, pursue your passion, and pursue it with a degree of scrutiny on yourself. Like scrutinize yourself and challenge yourself to always be better, and act as if you know nothing.
You don't know shit. You don't know shit, bitch. I'm talking to myself. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Damn, gentleman and scholar up in this building. Let all the ladies, gentlemen, humans, dolphins, fellow aliens out there in the universe, let them know where they can find your stuff, where they can find your work. Tell the people where they can get you.
You can find some of my stuff at a website, blinding.me. So I don't know how I actually procured that website name, blinding.me. Check out artdivision.org. It's an amazing 501c3 organization here in Los Angeles. If you want to donate to it, that would be awesome because that's how we
links in the description.
Yep, that's how we keep it going over there. And I can guarantee you there will be some very world-renowned artists probably coming out of that program. It's mine. I mean, a lot of the students there are already far better creatively than I'll ever dream to be. So definitely check it out. Check out what's coming out of there, and it's a nice little hidden gem in the city of Los Angeles.
Totally, yeah. It sounds incredible.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to hear someone with such a big heart coming on and coming to be so genuine.
You know what's funny though? You don't know what you're getting into until you're too deep into it. I just thought I was going to be teaching some design classes, hanging out.
One thing leads to another. 3
years later, almost 4 now, it's
they really tricked you, huh?
No, it has become my favorite thing that I've actually been able to do in my 11 years here in LA, and it's a privilege to be able to offer my time there every day.
Teaching is quite fulfilling, I'll say that.
Well, do you have an open invitation to anytime you want, come back on the show? I love talking with you. I think there's I think echelon or plethora of wisdom and knowledge that you could share with our guests and with us in general. And
I love it. This is great.
Anytime you need any help from us, we got your back, bro. So tell us how we can help. Links in the description. We're gonna go around the table, plug everything. T-Mac.
T McD, twisting knobs and pushing buttons. You can find me on Instagram at T McD with 2 underscores, and that is it. Can't have my Twitter.
I'm Gabby Shake. Remember to go watch Hermione Granger and the Quarter Life Crisis. Episode 5 had just... the Mevo just turned off. I don't know how.
Still recording, though.
But here we... hey, guys, I'm Gabby. Gabby Shake. Follow me on Instagram. Gabby Shake. Twitter, all the social media platforms. And don't forget to watch Hermione Granger and the Quarter Life Crisis on YouTube.
Bueno.
Nick Arciero. You can find me on Instagram at Nick_Arciero. And then there's a whole bunch of different subcategories you can find me on that same moniker. Check out Art Division, artdivision.org. And I'm passing it over to this guy to my left.
Yo, you know what to do. We missing Mr. C the Enforcer, and that's who usually rhymes with you. But I'm Sailor Dev, Sailor_Dev. More importantly, follow the show at Skitbags Radio, at Skitbags Radio on Twitter, at Skitbags Radio on Instagram, Facebook, and skitbags.com. We got a bunch of awesome stuff coming down the pipeline. I'll save the promotions for the tag at the end, and we'll end this out with a good, I don't know. Let's get a moment of zen.
We're up to something.
Yeah, get a moment of zen for our guests. Usually we do jump out, but fuck that bullshit. We've talked about a lot of significant, awesome stuff, and if you want to make a fart noise, that's cool too.
That was terrible.
Skitbags Radio, we're up!
Skitbags Radio.